Um, I'm Justin Pearson, and the bands that I'm in or been in the whole, like there's a, starting Struggle, and then I briefly played in a band called Brain Tourniquet, and Swing Kids, Crimson Curse, The Locust, Holy Molar, Ground Unicorn Horn, Some Girls, All Leather, Leg Lifters, Dead Cross, Headwind City, maybe one more that I can't think of, but I think that might be it.
If you had to describe the kind of music that you play, how would you try to put it?
The best and most effective way to describe it, like if I had to pick one, would just be annoying. So, you know, like at the grocery store, like, oh, you play in a band? Like, what kind of music is it? And if you say punk, they're gonna think Green Day, or they're gonna, I don't know what they're gonna think. So I just always say annoying, and it's good because they normally get confused and don't talk to you, or then it just kind of changes the subject. And that was kind of like how I took a liking to saying that. And it's just, I just like fucking with people.
What do you think, really, you know, in terms of your musical future, where are you guys at?
Down the toilet.
When you first meet Justin Pearson, he might come off just a tad off-putting.
He can sour a mood in a matter of words.
But it's not, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the way that, like, some people don't have the best reaction unless the person's just, up their ass, you know. Oh, very nice to meet you. And he's just like, hey, you know.
He stood out like a nail that you trip on.
He has a reputation for being able to have a properly functioning bullshit detector at all times.
There's no bullshitting. I mean, that was something I actually could pick up on that when I first met him.
He always seemed to me like someone who was ahead of the curve. People like that are always just a little intimidating.
I think he was just this like weird, kind of cool dude that was kind of a dick.
He just seemed very present. He just seemed very devoted to his craft and devoted to, Oh yeah, sure, sorry, what happened? Oh my God, that's great. I would love to have that in the video. Who's in there? Charles. I'll yell at him.
No, it's no big deal.
Well, stop flushing the toilet!
I kind of make fun of him and say he's a hippie sometimes because he's like a secret hippie because he like loves essential oils and is all about yoga and all this stuff. But yeah, it's kind of funny, the difference between I think what people think he is and how he is in just the average day.
But when he has so many tracks, I'll be like, wait, what's that? Like that one, the blue one or whatever, you know? Like, I'm like, dude, you can't even hear that. It sounds so cool. Take out all this other stuff. And luckily, he's not like a dick to me about it.
I'll pretty much work until we say stop. If not, I'll keep layering.
When he was first born, I wanted a girl because I grew up with 3 brothers. But when I saw how beautiful a baby he was, I mean, it was like, yeah, I'll take him, I'll keep him. And he was a really good kid.
I grew up in Phoenix and San Diego. I mean, I was born in Chicago, but I was only there until I was 8 months old, which sucks in retrospect. Going back there, I think it's rad. I would have rather have grown up in Chicago than Phoenix.
Yeah, Chicago's pretty cool.
And Phoenix is not cool.
What was Phoenix like?
Shitty. Yeah, like around 10 years old, I found skateboarding, and it changed my life, and it was sort of like the segue to music for me because of Thrasher, and that's what I grabbed onto as a kid. I got my first skateboard in San Diego on vacation. I found it in an alley. When we lived in Phoenix, we would vacation to San Diego to this place called Mission Beach. There's like a boardwalk and a lot of tourism, and there was a lot of surf and skateboard shops. We went to like Burger King or something, and it was in the alley behind the place that we were, that we parked at. So I just randomly saw this green skateboard, and I was scared, like, oh my God, like someone's gonna be pissed that I have their skateboard, but you know, my dad was like, take it, it's there. And so I remember the whole time I was in San Diego, it was like, I didn't have to stick around with my parents. I went everywhere.
The skateboarding was fine. Skateboarding, he really liked that, and he would do that when he was in like middle school. Right before we left Phoenix, he started getting into the punk rock stuff too.
It was like this weird shift. I mean, I remember like being into like Star Wars toys, kids stuff, and like Nintendo, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm into skateboarding and into like punk and into like blowing shit up and like shoplifting and stuff. Like, oh, I'm gonna be like bad now and be into all this like bad stuff. Because, you know, at that time skateboarding wasn't as mainstream, and like, yeah, I just remember my parents like being really bummed that I was into this stuff, you know, and which also fueled it. You know, it's like, cool, you guys are not into it, so I'm gonna do that. And I really do think like if I didn't sort of discover that world of stuff, being in Phoenix would have went down like a really stupid route. I was like a sponge, like soaking it up. It was a lot of like kind of weird crossover stuff, because that was like when Beastie Boys' License to Ill came out, so I was really into that, and I was really into Slayer, Show No Mercy, and so it was like rap and metal, and, you know, but to me it was just all like, it all just seemed annoying. And my parents hated it all, and so I thought it was cool. I hated my parents, so I was like, yeah, that's great. This is gonna be my life. If I did anything wrong, like my parents would take my skateboard, or they would break my records, or smash my tapes, or whatever, and like they helped me off to a good start. You know, like, yeah, I needed that. I needed to know that it was like not acceptable. My dad was rarely cool. There was like probably like 5 times where I thought like, wow, he's really cool. I mean, my perception was like he just didn't like his family, like the jerk in like a John Hughes film, because he knows that I was aware that he beat the crap out of my mom and like gave her a black eye or something like that, you know, and then you know, he felt bad or something. I'm pretty sure they just thought I was oblivious to it, you know. But I mean, I saw all of it. I saw all of the shit that my parents would do to each other. He would, you know, just get wasted and like pass out, and I would just steal all his money and essentially use that and go buy records or do things that I, you know, knew that he wouldn't be into. Because here's this like asshole, alcoholic, misogynist jerk, like telling me I'm like into bad stuff. I'm like, you're a bad person, so, you know, like, I don't know, like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. So my dad was just like spiraling down this sort of sketchy route in life. You know, he lost his job, and he had a bunch of DUIs. There were always these people calling our house for him, and I was told, like, if anyone calls for your dad, like, he doesn't live here. But the weirdest thing was, like, the night that he died, we went to this school function. We were like dressed as terrorists, you know, with pantyhose over our faces and shit. And so it was like the night before Halloween. I remember like running home really quick to get something like camouflage clothing or something, and my dad wasn't supposed to be there, so I was like, oh, and grabbing my stuff, and I remember him like making this really strange effort to talk to me and to like ask what I'm doing and ask how I'm doing, and I was just like, well, fuck you, man, I'm out of here, like, this is stupid, like, you don't ever talk to me, and I remember like about to leave the go out the door, and he hugged me and kissed me, and I just remember leaving and thinking like that was weird, and then hadn't thought about it for like years, and you know, until years later when I was like, wow, that night was strange, because it felt like he made some sort of effort, which he had not made effort ever. And I remember staying at my friend's, and I remember sleeping on his floor, and the phone in the house like kept ringing, and it was, you know, it was like 4 a.m. or something, and it was ringing and ringing, and I was just like, wow, what the hell's going on with my friend's family or whatever. And then right when the sun started to kind of come up, I remember like kind of hearing a woman crying in the other room, and I was just like this is probably not good. And then eventually my friend's mom took my friend Mike out of the room, and then my mom came in, and it was her that was crying, and you know, she told me, you know, your dad's dead, and I didn't react. I didn't really know what to like think. You know, I didn't like know what to do, and I was just like, all right. And so we got up and went back to our house, and the police were there, and the whole front lawn was like, you know, taped off. My grandmother was there, and I just remember like not understanding it for a long time. He went to this, I guess he had like some kind of meeting, like a work meeting for his new job, and he got wasted afterwards, and it was at a restaurant that had a bar. Started hitting on this girl, and she had two friends. One was 19, one was 21, and they got in an altercation. And so the place threw all of them out, and so they followed him to our house, and then in the driveway got out and hit him with a crowbar or a tire iron. He had a brain aneurysm, which is why he would, that's why he would get drunk all the time, really easily. When the hit happened, the brain aneurysm exploded, and that was what caused the actual death. So I think in court, it didn't hold up for some reason, and regardless, the people didn't go to jail. It was a bummer. I don't know. I mean, so yeah, Halloween, it's just weird. And even growing up, even, like in my early 20s and stuff, it wasn't really that like Halloween was sad for me, but it was sad because I thought about my mom a lot, and I thought like she must be upset and must be hard for her to kind of reflect, because she still is in love with my dad, which is hard for me to understand because, of the abuse. But then at the same time, I would think like, well, my mom's not gonna get beat up anymore, but she did. Not too long after, my mom got her next boyfriend, who was just was worse than my dad. Instantly got this new boyfriend that beat me and her up and our dog, and so then I never really had a time to process it, because I didn't have parenting. I didn't have like normal morals that I guess you would give to or teach to a child or a preteen. It was fucked up. I mean, it was a weird mix of things, because I remember like already like starting to fight at school and like fighting people. Should call the airport, tell them.
Justin, I'm surprised. Dave has never let anybody else use that camera, ever, except Grandma. Hello.
So for whatever reason, when my dad died, my mom wanted to bring his ashes to Mission Beach or Pacific Beach. But that trip was a mess because I remember flying, and she had to get this like special paperwork to be able to bring his ashes, and it was fucked up. They made her open the urn, and they were like pushing, like they stuck a pin in the ashes and like crazy shit. And my mom was so pissed, and I just felt bad for her, And
Justin, go away. I'm talking to Grandma. Again. Come on, don't waste the film.
so we got to San Diego eventually, and she was pretty drunk, and I remember her like trying to throw the ashes out into the ocean, and it was like blowing back, and I was just like, this is fucking lame. But it was that night that she met her new boyfriend, and I saw like through the door of the hotel room kind of cracked open, and she was like kissing him, and I was like, the fuck is going on? I didn't say that, but I was thinking like, what the fuck is going on? And then a couple days later, I was like, oh, there's a new dude. Back in Arizona, like he like came out there to visit and stuff, and I was like, that was quick. And it was bad, like the first trip that he took to visit my mom, he hit me. I mean, I was pretty shitty. I just remember like just being like, fuck you to my mom about everything, but like this guy had no place to try to parent me, I mean, we had just met, and like my dad just died, and my parents were not really effective. So my mom moved us to San Diego and bought this new house that this new guy, Frank, also lived in. It was a weird transition. So like when my mom got this new boyfriend, she checked out a bit more, and so I had like a lot more freedom. And so then I would like start discovering stuff. And I remember like being 12 and going and see the Cramps. And I discovered like a bunch of crazy shit because I started going to Tijuana. There was this venue down there that was 18 and up, and I got a fake ID when I was 13, and I would just go to TJ and like see PIL pretty early on, Gnostic Front. I didn't really like them, but or like MDC, Circle Jerks, and GBH. Like it was pretty rad. I mean, I was like 13 and 14 years old, sneaking out of my house and sneaking into another country. I don't know how or why, but I talked my mom into buying me this like $150 Washburn bass guitar, you know, and so that was kind of it. And I didn't really have an objective, except that I started hanging out with Jose.
I remember going with Justin to Phoenix.
We went and saw Suicidal Tendencies play on my 15th birthday. And
I was kind of scared, you know, I'm Latino, there's a whole bunch of Nazi skinheads at this show.
There was this huge skinhead. He had one tattoo on his arm that just said, "I hate n***." And I just remember thinking, like, how fucking frightening.
And I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen, but I know that Justin had my back.
But we're like watching a band that has Latinos and blacks in it. You know, he's there to see Suicidal Tendencies, but he's just a fucking idiot, you know? So we got like very political and confrontational and pissed people off.
That no matter what, he's willing to get his nose broken with me if anybody fucks with me. And so that was like the night that I was like, I like this person, I like this kid. I think we're gonna be friends for a long time.
That night we were like, we're gonna start a band, you know? The thing is, it wasn't about the music. That was just kind of like this sort of vessel to just be like, fuck you to you and fuck you to you, and like just kind of like start dealing with our shit.
We just wanted to do something. We wanted to play music, and we also wanted to get a message across. So
now all of a sudden I'm in a band with these 3 of my other friends, and we can say a bunch of shit that we think is relevant.
There was a lot of stuff in San Diego happening with the Border Patrol. There's a lot of stuff around police brutality. So I felt like a lot of our lyrics focused on that.
I think he was telling me that he like went on tour with Struggle when he was like 15 or something like that, which is incredible that he was able to do that. I think he probably just had the bite very early on.
He was 15, and I bought him a van, and they were going on tour, he and the rest of the band members. One of the drummer's father got the van registered so that they could drive the van because it wasn't registered, and these kids were 15 years old, and I took a chance to let them go.
I'm pretty grateful because I end up bypassing a lot of stupid shit that like kids do, you know, like a lot of that stuff didn't matter to me, like what to do on the weekend, like just seemed irrelevant, you know, at that point.
And the worst thing he ever did was he had dreadlocks.
I don't know, I remember like I had like grown dreadlocks, and they were just my hair was gross. I was a pretty gross person, I guess, you know, like a scummy punk or whatever. And my mom just like came in the house and like just flipped out and like how disgusting I was, and she hit me and like said something about my girlfriend and get out of the house. And I was like, all right, fuck you, I'm out, you know, I'll split. In retrospect, I'm pretty sure she didn't think I would like leave for good, but I left the house basically because I was getting sick of getting beat up by my mom's boyfriend. And I graduated, you know, high school living in a co-op that was, you know, full of hippies and shit. It was weird.
I used to have my nose pierced right here at the center, and I did it myself with a safety pin, and it got infected.
Our first band breaks up because people are moving to go to college, and we started another band and Swing Kids, and as soon as we had an option to tour, like, you know, it wasn't that you question it, you just get fired and you go on tour and you come back and do the same thing again, get another shitty job until the next tour. So with Struggle, it was very overtly political. The obvious political slant was alienating to a lot of people. And not that they didn't share the same beliefs, we would sort of just kind of bum people out by just always being very serious and being pissed. Swing Kids was saying like, we're into like cool shit, like weird jazz.
I brought in the sort of the free jazz component. I was very much influenced by the politics of Anthony Braxton and Cecil Taylor.
People said he wasn't a jazz musician because it was almost like noise.
I wouldn't call it just noise, because that noise is reflective of what's happening with those people who are producing it. And so for me, as a person of color living in the border, having been born in Tijuana, growing up in San Diego, to me, I could definitely relate with that kind of vibe that those artists were introducing when they were around.
Going into like the realm of jazz, talking about Cecil Taylor or bringing in like the relevance of like, I don't know, like Naked City or something. And it brought in all these things that I don't think we were consciously really aware of, which was like the timbre of notes and the structure of songs and the rephrasing of what music is supposed to be. There wasn't a focus on melody, there was a focus on tension and release. So we started like just kind of getting, for the lack of better words, like into weirder shit. So there was like this sort of world where you could like start introducing like other things, and it was kind of cool. And because we were still being very political, we were still playing benefit shows, we were still doing these things, like we were living lives that we felt had a political agenda. How you spend your money is more political than like what you're saying to an audience. So we were realizing those things.
Southern California is divided into 3 regions. You got LA, then you got Orange County, and then you got San Diego, and all 3 places have completely different worlds and scenes and things like that.
You think of like something like Los Angeles where there is a lot of arts, but in San Diego there was nowhere to go. There was nothing that was being offered to younger people. It was just only about white tourism.
I've always been sort of fascinated by it because San Diego is a very strange town. Military town, college bro town, also a border town, so there's a lot of cultural melting pot in there, you know? It's definitely more interesting than Orange County.
That border region is kind of like a microcosm of a larger systemic global apartheid where people are divided by these boundaries.
If you grew up in San Diego and you weren't like a surfer or a bro or a jock or like a military person, it was kind of like a revolting place to be, so you went the opposite way.
And San Diego definitely has a very specific sound.
I think that the uniqueness that San Diego has comes from the fact that it's not spelled out. There was no like obvious way to do anything.
And there was just a lot happening all at once. Bands and visual art and writers and magazines. And it was a really exciting time.
We would find ourselves playing with hip-hop bands or with funk bands. For instance, like at the Che Cafe, I remember, you know, going to the Che and seeing Heroin play and a 3-piece jazz band, and then it was all-you-can-eat spaghetti. San Diego's an expensive city to live in, and so we would live in these like shitty neighborhoods, and we would just have everybody live there. We rented out the closet, you know, like, everybody shared a room, and when you left on tour, you subletted your room or whatever. I mean, it was a big 2-story house, and it was a duplex, so the first level was one house, and the top level was the second, but we all kind of intermingled, and the show would be over, and the next morning you'd find someone like rolled up in the drum rug, like passed out, or you'd find like syringes or barf or, you know, fucking weird shit. Like, I remember the Locust played, and at one point someone had brought a Christmas tree into the house. Like, we didn't have one. It was just like, oh, the show's happening, we're playing, and there's a fucking Christmas tree.
That's kind of like the spirit of San Diego shows sometimes, where you're just like, oh, there's that girl that dresses like a chicken sometimes, and she's getting carried out of the Casbah for throwing a drink at the bartender. there was always this naked kid at shows. I remember a Holy Molar show where he was just like on top of everybody in the pit and jumping off stage, and it was a little bit too much.
Somebody give that man a blowjob!
We were working with these labels that were just putting out garbage, you know, and I thought, like, I could do that myself, at least that bad or better. A lot of it had to do with Eric Allen, so he was in Unbroken and Swing Kids and Struggle. I met Eric before I ever played in a band, and we just felt we could do better. And so Eric kind of egged me on. He's like, I have these 2 Unbroken songs. You should put out this Unbroken 7-inch. You should repress the Swing Kids stuff on a new label. You know, and he would joke around, and he kept calling it JP Records and shit like that. And I was like, well, I need a name. I don't know what name to call it. And so at the time, Swing Kids had covered Warsaw by Joy Division, and it's the chorus to the song.
Had another record that we wanted to release, and Justin just said, I would love to do it. The process of it was involved very little stress.
He was friends with the dudes and offered up money to do the recording and do all that stuff. And back then, that's all I really fucking could hope to ask for. And it was just always really cool.
I guess when I started like getting a little bit more absurd was this release, the Crimson Curse Festival Dead Deer 7-inch, which came out as a square. To press this, it's the cost of a 12-inch with an additional like fee of cutting it to a shape. So it's like totally not practical. Especially like when I was releasing stuff like this. This is 3-1G number 7. It was like you know, you couldn't really sell a 7-inch for more than, I don't know, $4 or $5. Like that was like the maximum amount that you could like kind of charge. So it was I lost a lot of money, but it was still, you know, what I wanted to do, and it came out looking pretty fucking rad.
The dude puts out what he likes, for better or for worse.
It was ridiculous, so expensive to do.
Do you ever regret those choices?
No, because I'm glad I got to see it, like, you know, be done or whatever. Like otherwise, I think like, I mean, I don't know, when else would you have seen a square 7-inch? Or I would never have been able to see a square 7-inch, you know. So it was cool for me, just to kind of like see it exist. And I mean, I think doing stuff like that kind of made 3-1G like a thing. Like people were like, what the fuck? There's this label doing a square record. But I had an idea to like do, you know, like a puddle shape. So it's a puddle, and then like all the body fluid colors. So there's each color. With a very crude drawing of the body part that I guess produces the color. This is the urine color. I think like that's pretty fucking rad, like a puddle shape. I was like, because we were trying to think of like what shape could you do that's like just kind of stupid, and I was like a puddle, because it's like it just looks crummy, but the fact that it's vinyl is just, I don't know, pretty rad and just out there.
They started the business 3-1G to put out a lot of the records that Justin's bands were doing, and then, you know, became a place of real credibility for music and community.
I think what's cool about 3-1G is not just so much the bands that were on there and the bands that JP puts out. I think it's just the whole aesthetic, the whole presentation of it.
A lot of the bands are confrontational and aggressive, and I think that's just about like being a human in America and in this century and the few years before this century.
I feel fortunate that I was able to release records to people on a record label that had the integrity that 3-1G had.
So Eric Allen to me was like, he was like a really good prankster, and that was the main thing that drew me to that guy. I don't know, I just thought he was a genius, and then he started playing guitar, and I realized that he really was a genius.
Well, I also know that he struggled with mental health issues the way that many of us punk kids do and still do, you know, and for us, that music, that cultural production was a way for us to let it out.
So, you know, he got involved in drugs and overdosed on purpose. He committed suicide.
And I know that Eric felt like he couldn't really come out and address some of the things that he was dealing with.
It was weird because, you know, it's like, I was pretty mad at him for doing that, because I feel like if I'd known, we would have made it better. Everyone would have made it better for him, you know? But it was his own thing. You know, he wasn't able to tell anybody, and that was that.
A lot of people who, and this is not to talk shit, but a lot of people who all of a sudden after his death were like bringing flowers and being all, you know, emotional and like as if they were really there when he was going through the shit, when he really needed people. Those people were not there. And so I felt like, for that reason, I didn't go to his funeral.
Did you end up going to that last show that was played?
No, I did not go.
Is that part of
Yes.
why?
Yeah. Okay. I want to remember Eric in my own way, and I know that the kind of person that he is, because I've been there. I've struggled with suicide ideation and suicide attempts. And so, yeah, that's all I can say about that.
It's one of those things where he was like only meant to be here for a short time, and he made his impact and was like done.
I think JP took Eric Allen's death pretty heavy, kind of took a step back and kind of had to look inward and look at our own culture is the way that I did, our own punk culture. We can say we're against this and we're against that, but what the fuck are we for, right?
It seemed like the end of the world constantly, you know, and so it wasn't like, let's start a band because this is fun. It was, let's start a band because we absolutely have to do this for whatever reason, survival, mental survival, you know, something along those lines. And so it was just, there was just no other option, I guess.
The origin of the Locust, it started with the original drummer, Dave Astor, and myself. So we're walking down the street, just kind of asking people that looked like weirdos, like if they played bass, like, hey, do you play bass? Do you play bass? And we ended up running into one of the guitar players of a great band called Antioch Arrow. And so we asked him, like, oh, do you know a bass player? Or do you play bass? And he's like, no, but I have it, my friend does, you know, Justin Pearson. And we're like, oh, that guy? So we ended up hitting him up, and, you know, to our surprise, he's like, yeah, like we were kind of just like crazy metal punk dudes. At that point, he was like, oh, let's get in Dylan, who sang in Struggle.
Dylan's a great singer, great fun person. He'll sing, and we'll just sound like Crossed Out. But for whatever reason, Dylan wanted to play second guitar and wanted to get this friend of his to sing, and it was what it was, but it was never our initial intention. And I think it's not what Bobby and Dave and I wanted to do. It just kind of, you know, cohesive riffs. We wanted to just kind of just be like this brutal mess of stuff. So the other person that was brought in is this guy, Dave Warshaw, who was Dylan's friend at the time, and who was just gonna sing. He had some modular synths and wanted to kind of just play this Moog as like an interlude in between some of the songs. And Bobby and I were like, dude, you gotta play it all the time. Like, it is the best thing we've ever heard. And to go back to like mine and Bobby's childhood, we were really into stuff like Devo, and like The Residents and things that were just kind of weird and quirky, and the Moog to us was like that. And we're like, oh my God, let's do this thing that's like brutal like Crossed Out and weird like Devo. You know, a few months went by, like couldn't have been much time. Dylan and Dave decided that they were gonna move and quit the band. And Bobby and I were just kind of psyched. We're gonna get a keyboard player, and we're gonna do exactly what we want to do. So we enlisted Jimmy Lavelle. I knew he was able to play keyboards, and Bobby and I went to this pawn shop and found one of those realistic Moogs it was like $75 or something, and which was, you know, it was totally accident. You know, if we wouldn't have ever had Dylan introduce us to Dave as a second singer in the band, we never would have even thought of having a synthesizer.
Oh, it was perfect. It was super brutal, you know. It was really fast, and then it had this like sci-fi sound to it. So the first time I heard it, actually, Jimmy played it for me. I was like, how am I gonna get in this band? How am I gonna play this? I wanna do this, you know. It was like the coolest shit. Because when I was a kid, it was like, I was really into like brutal metal, right? And then I was into punk, but the sloppiness of it would kind of like turn me off, because when I was learning to play drums, I was really into the proficiency of listening to extreme metal music or whatever, right? And then to have the next step be fucking that brutal sound with fucking weird keyboards over it, it was like, that was the coolest shit. I don't think it could get better than that for me personally. I started Cattle Decapitation with the original drummer Dave Astor. I was playing guitar in that band, and we were just like rehearsing one day, and he said, he's like, hey, you know, you should probably play guitar in Locust, second guitar. And I was like, yeah, I totally should. And he talked to the dudes, and the next thing I knew, I was in the band. And then I was just going over to Bobby's house to learn all the guitar parts.
Locust had come to play, and they were about to go on a European tour, and you could kind of sense that there was a bit of flux in the band. I think he knew at that point that I was into synthesizers and noise and that sort of thing, and he just kind of hit me up about it. I went to San Diego a couple times, and Bobby showed me how to play the songs, and I guess that was it. At the time, we had the original drummer, Dave Astor. It seemed like at some point, his interests and our interests were starting to diverge, and he was really becoming a great drummer, but we were looking to explore more. I think he felt like things might not have been going his way and decided to leave the band. And Gabe decided at one point he wanted to try and take over drum duties, and it just felt right. And you know, when he sort of jumped on the drum kit, it really kind of broke things wide open for us in a lot of ways.
Hi, I'm John Waters, and now you're going to hear the music of The Locust, one of my favorite groups that guarantee will make your parents horrified if they hear it coming from your bedroom. Play it loud, and they'll call the psychiatrist.
I just remember feeling like it was some of the most antisocial music that I've ever heard in my entire life.
If I had to describe The Locust, I'd probably just tell them the titles of the songs are longer to say than the actual songs themselves.
It was intriguing to me because I felt like there were elements of The Locust that I could, in my own head, categorize. But then there was so much of it that I couldn't wrap my brain around. They were fusing a lot of different influences in a very creative way, and they were all quite handsome. I liked their hair a lot.
Like, how do you remember small, compact bits with complex information in it? I always was absolutely fascinated by that, and I still don't know. I figure it out 1,000 miles an hour, seemingly, and all that information coming at you, and it's all it's blocked just so. I was absolutely fascinated by that.
I was captivated by the speed and ferocity of that band.
I would love to know what drives other people towards this sound. For me, I kind of had like this very bizarre upbringing, and in my more formative years, I dealt with a lot of anxiety and depression, and my introduction to this music was like no wave. And there was just something about the dissonance that they were creating that made my brain feel so good that I had never experienced before.
Those types of things, those left of center things that are perfect, but then there's just one ugly thing that's right in the middle of it. Those things are appealing to me.
Appeal? I have no idea, man. I mean, I've tried to sell things before in stores. I was shitty at that, and I'm not trying to sell music, you know?
We like Slayer. Before that, we loved Venom because they were playing fast and really horrible sounding things. There's that. Then what's the next thing? Well, there's weird psychedelic music with all sorts of freakouts on it, feedback freakouts. Okay, well, then there's free jazz. So there's like a continuum of extremity that isn't defined by specific music as much as it is an aesthetic. JP and the rest of the guys in Locust, I think they get bored really easy. And that's why they were all into things like synthesizers and electronics and like, let's mix this stuff into this music that we've been playing all this other time. And that's another reason why they just brought in their trip into it, which is, I guess, what you're supposed to do in order to maintain some sort of aesthetic continuum of anything. To survive, it has to mutate. And these guys were just heavy on the mutation tip, a lot faster than everybody else.
Fucking A, dude, the war cry.
I'm at the Eiffel Tower. We went to tour in Europe, like, pretty quick after we started the band.
Stop it, dude. The action right there. The action. Yes. Salt shaker, huh? I guess.
You're stuck in traffic and having a smoke.
One of the guys from Doom was there, and we were pretty psyched. Like, wow, there's like a legend, you know, here. And he was heckling the shit out of us, you know, and making fun of us. Before we even started playing, he was like, you guys look like mods, and you have a fucking keyboard, and he was just laughing at us. And I was just like, give us a minute, and then you're gonna eat your words. We played one song, and I remember his face just being like, what the fuck, you know? We would get a lot of criticism, mainly for the way we looked. It wasn't even for the music, but, you know, and occasionally for the music too. But it was usually because, like, we had certain haircuts or certain clothing.
Yeah, it was me. Why do you fucking say stupid shit? Because I think you look stupid, so I feel like that's an opinion. Stupid music.
You know, the Spock haircuts, the insect glasses.
You know, I remember like looking at pictures of the Dead Kennedys or the Dead Boys or Crime or whatever, any band, you know, and people looked weird, and that was the point.
It was punk rock in a sense of arrogance. The whole concept of Kurt Cobain and Seattle grunge being like the antithesis, we're the anti-rock stars. We look like we just got done changing your oil at the Mr. Goodwrench garage. But like, here's the Locust, who've got these suits and all of this accoutrement, as it were. And they're still the hardest, most punkest, most in-your-face outfit, which probably fucked up a lot of people who live and die by the punk rock rulebook. You can't do this, you can't wear this, you can't look like that. Synthesizers in your hardcore band? Are you kidding? You know, back in the late 90s, or, you know, a lot of people were just kind of like...
All right, can you just test it, like, so just talk like you're describing?
Sure. These are my silly outfits. And check one, check two. Yeah. There was this magazine called Hit It or Quit It that was popular at some point, and they kept criticizing. Well, a lot of people criticized the Locust the way we looked, and we dressed with regular clothes, sort of very similar to how I'm dressed now. But they were talking about like our fashion sense, and I think as a joke, we thought, you know, we should try to wear some kind of uniform. And so we were in San Francisco. We were about to go to Japan for I think our second time, and we went to this thrift store, and they had 4 of these vests. But, you know, I mean, it's sort of like campy, sci-fi looking, and we thought, like, oh, that'll be cool. We didn't really take ourselves very serious, clearly. So we did it, and it seemed like a success. We went to Japan, and people were psyched on the way we looked.
dripping off his fucking chin. Successfully spat back. Who wants their pants? Yep, and their whatever. Oh man, not fucking spit. Has his own spit. Pants in his own spit.
We're like, all right, well, we're gonna do another tour. Let's make another uniform. So we bought these some sort of crossing guard type of outfits, and we just sewed on these reflective pieces, and we had our logo, you know, sewn on. So we've got welder's glasses, which I think are pretty gross now, and of course they came, you know, fully equipped with like these hot pants. The thing that I think was like sort of like pushing us into this direction of wearing uniform was like we were on tour with like hardcore bands that were like pretty macho and masculine and like really, you know, didn't have necessarily like the sense of humor that we think that people should. I mean, yeah, we're politically minded and we're socially conscious and we have all these, you know, ideas, but at the same time, like if you take yourself seriously, you just kind of come off as an asshole, in my opinion. And it was crazy too because I remember wearing that uniform and like getting in fights with people. I broke a dude's nose with my head while we were playing, and it's like it wasn't like there was still like, you know, I guess like, you know, masculinity at these shows, and it wasn't that we were like into fighting, but like people were trying to fight us.
Video camera? Yeah. How do you feel, man? You gonna be alright?
Feel good, man.
Can you see okay?
I took this one for the Locust, man. Because, you know, this kid came up to me and said that the Locust fans were trying to beat him up. So I said, well, you know, that's fucked up. I'm gonna take one in the eye for the Locust.
Thanks, man. Fuck.
To show you that we can all be tough guys.
Something's gonna come out of there, I think.
An alien, probably.
Just shut the fuck up. Alright. I'm sick of hearing you, man. It's none of your business, man. It's some personal shit.
Nice leg hairs! Oh my fucking god! Nice man pants!
Nice gorilla pants! Nice gorilla pants!
Maybe it's beer!
Hey, kick it! I don't want a beer on me! Shut the fuck up! If I pour... Give me a beer, I'll pour it out on you. Would you fucking like me to do that?
I had nothing to do with it!
Alright, then chill! That girl sucks! I don't want to wear a fucking beer! Shut the fuck up! Listen, if I poured a beer on you, would you fucking like it? No? So shut the fuck up! Give it...
In one sense, it was really good because we were known, but in another sense, it was like we were showing up and getting beaten up, maced, getting our tires slashed.
We've gotten in a lot of fights together. Yeah, we have a special connection because of the random acts of violence that were inflicted on us.
But it all kind of tied into this whole, you know, antagonistic, like, middle finger to music or to music culture or something, you know.
Tough guy hardcore, for all intents and purposes. You listen to that and like, okay, yeah, whatever. It's you got your Cookie Monster vocal. You're in on the downstroke. God bless you. But you listen to a Locust record, and it's just incredible. It's incredibly foreign and weirder than hell, and shocking to a lot of people who will say, "That's not hardcore." And like, bullshit. They're playing faster than you.
Okay. Boo. What's he gonna do? I thought he was gonna do it. I don't know what he's
Alright, dude. Yeah, you're done. You're in there, dude.
Dude, that was fucked up. Just puts it out, dude. Yeah, pull it back a little. Pull it back a little bit.
Okay. Dude, I got it. You guys gotta match.
Does this get you laid, dude?
Shit will not catch fire.
You get bored in 10 minutes.
I'm getting bored. I'm getting bored. I want to see actual fire happen.
Yeah.
What the fuck, dude?
Keep it on there. 15 seconds.
This thing will not catch fire, man.
Set his head on fire. It smells so bad.
It smells so bad.
Well, Troy, it's one of the locusts. He's invaded my home and displaced me. I'm calling my exterminator right now.
Hello, this is this week's Prerequisite. It's the first Antioch Era OP, and it's for fans of anything creative or remotely interesting.
I mean, we were doing what we wanted to do. Like, we weren't bound by anything.
Seriously, dude.
10 of us.
Doesn't fucking matter.
We're the locust. It doesn't matter.
Our shows in the UK with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs were probably some of the most interesting shows that we've played as a band.
All right, go for it, right?
The audiences there hated us. You know, they were there to see the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and wanted nothing to do with us. There was one in particular. It was in Birmingham.
You know, we've had everything thrown at us, from like beer bottles to stools, bar stools, pints of full beer.
Onslaught of things thrown at us the entire time.
And someone threw a pint glass at my collarbone, broke it.
And it was just like fucked up. It was like raining beer, and I had a computer that I was running samples in between the songs. There was like little atmospheric sounds going on, and a beer landed on my computer, and I fucking lost it. I picked up the pint glass and just
and stood up on his drum seat and puked in it and was gonna throw it in the crowd.
But it was great because I'm holding this fucking pint glass, and there's everyone in the front row is just doing their best to get away.
And it was just so crazy to watch.
But they can't because there's all these people pushing forward.
It was weird because I saw all these younger people in front, and I'm like, they're not the dudes that were throwing the glasses, you know.
There's no way to tell, right? Yeah, so I just dumped it on my head. I never felt power like that before.
He had some like issue or something for a while where he just kept puking when he'd play. I think I just drove up there to see him or some shit. It was I think it was the Hollywood House of Blues.
Which is one of those venues where you're like, Locust shouldn't be playing this venue.
I mean, I walked in at the fucking perfect time. I missed the Locust set, but I walked in as it was just like, you know, thank you, good night, you know, kind of thing. Gabe stands up on his drums
and threw up all over his drums.
Horked all over.
Vomited through his mask, and then sat back down and started blasting, and it just like flew everywhere.
Just completely puked everywhere, and there was every single person in that venue, and it was packed, I don't know, 3,000 people or some shit. Every single person just went.
Gabe, you got any words to the camera?
Oh, it felt so good.
When I was in high school, I remember this kid would run the mile, and when he was done, he would just start fucking puking everywhere. And I think it was something similar to that. It's just like I'd be pushing it really hard. I'm a little dude, vegetarian, and I never really knew how to take care of myself. I smoked and I drank all the time as well.
We have to load out the stuff because the venue is gonna be closed like in 10 minutes. Hey, thank you so much.
Jump, 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 Joey!
I can't.
So I wasn't really taking care of myself. That probably had a lot to do with it. But I don't know, just fucking playing as hard and fast for those even the like little short bursts would just wear me out, and like I would overheat and just start puking everywhere.
But your fucking friends' bands and your bands and all them, they don't fucking throw up, right, assholes?
But I got quite good at it. I could like miss the drums. The first few times I did it, I would get on the drums, then I'd hit the drums, and then it would just be flying everywhere. It was a fucking mess for everyone. But I got better at it, and eventually I could just have like a bucket if I needed to puke, and I could do it without missing beats. It was pretty sweet. But it usually would happen when the song would end. And then be, oh fuck, and just everywhere.
This next number is called Anything Jesus Does, I Can Do Better. I think we're done.
Hey, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Guests are here confessing to their lovers that they have been hiding secrets from them. You know how we feel about that.
Scott Bibin was in San Diego for something. He'd run a record label, Bloodlink, and put out the Struggle Undertow split. We were sitting in our living room, and he said, Jerry Springer was on. He said, let's call and be on the show. And we're like, okay. And so he called and left a message on the spot, made up a story based on the 4 people that were in the house, and that was it. 4 in the morning, I get this phone call, and he's like, JP, you gotta wake up, you gotta, and he's like freaking out. And I'm like, what happened? And he's like, Jerry Springer, they're gonna call. And I was like, what? And he like, as soon as he said that, the other line beeped, and I was like, oh fuck, I got another call. And he goes, it's them. And I felt like I was in trouble. And I was like, okay, what am I supposed to say? He said, do you remember the story that I said? And I was like, no. He's like, all right, just answer the other line. So I answered it, and I was like, hey, you're gonna have to let me call you back. I need to wake up. And so I clicked back over, got the story with Scott, woke up, got out of bed, made the call, and the next day I was on a flight to Chicago with my 2 roommates who were also part of the story, and we did it and went to the show not knowing that it was gonna be anything.
Now, please meet Justin. Justin says he needs to tell his girlfriend that he has been sleeping with her roommate and a mutual friend. Justin, what's going on?
Well, I'm into rock and roll, and I live the rock and roll lifestyle, and stuff happens, and
and we all met up at a hotel and discussed like, this is who slept with who, and this is who is breaking up with who, and how this whole like relationship four-way like thing happened, and no punches to the face, no matter what.
You live with your girlfriend?
Yes.
And you guys have a roommate?
Yes.
And she is the one you're sleeping with?
Yes, one of the people I'm sleeping with.
You know, I was really afraid to break character, and so we go out on stage, we're doing the performance, and
yeah. And how is the relationship going?
Up and down. I mean, in the beginning, it was wonderful. We were gonna get married, have children. I was gonna put his name, fucking heart and band.
Right in.
But if I'm here, obviously, it's not good. I love you more than anything, Justin.
Go ahead, talk to her. I mean, she seems like a lovely lady.
You understand, like, I go away on tour for like a long time, and you're always pissed at me and always mad about thinking that I sleep with everyone or whatever, and like, I mean, stuff happens, you know, like when we go on tour, and like things happen, and I haven't been faithful, and I've been seeing someone.
Who the is it? Who is it? Why? Why would you say you wanted to marry me and have children with me?
it was fucking crazy and scary and weird, and I had to try not to break character, and of course Alicia punched all of us in the face. I get punched in the face, and I thought, you know, like when you get punched, like snot and everything, and your eyes start watering. I thought I was bleeding, and so I, you know, it was like I blew my nose, thinking it was blood.
Okay, if you know, you guys are all roommates. You know that that's a boyfriend.
And the crowd was like loving that.
This is such a class operation.
Part of it was a performance, but part of it was like, dude, I just got fucking punched in the face, and like, what the fuck is everybody cheering for? And like, you know, and I'm like, kind of like, I'm not an asshole, but then I was thinking like, oh, I am an asshole because I'm the douche in the story, you know. So when we got there, before we went on, we had to sign all this paperwork saying like, you can't lie, and if you're lying, you'll be fined. Each one of you will be fined $10,000, which is a lot of money now, and definitely a lot of money then. They go, okay, we're gonna go to commercial break. And so they bring me into the back, and this fucking little piece of shit throws me up against the wall, and there's like the two big security guards, and this guy's like yelling at me, you disrespected our house. And I was like, dude, pretty sure I've seen episodes where like there were like people pissing and shitting on your floor, and like KKK members like throwing cake and shit like that. Like, I don't think it matters. And they're like, fuck you. And I was like, no, what, you know, fuck you. And I kind of pushed the guy away, and next thing I know, I was just like thrown on the ground and dragged down this hallway by these two men that said that they were off-duty PD, and they're like, you waived your rights on that when you signed that paperwork, man. Like, and I didn't really realize like what I had gotten into. It was like mob mentality, you know. These people were like, no, you're gonna do your fucking performance, and you're gonna do it well. At that point, it turned like from being fun and like whatever like our goal was, like trying to like instigate something. It turned to just being like, fuck, I just want to like get out of this like alive and not have to be fined or go to jail or beat up or whatever. So I was like, all right, fine. Like, oh, let's go do this show.
Is that true? There's someone else you've been sleeping with as well?
Well, sometimes happens, you know, and
we go back out there and ham it up, and we're sort of fighting and just doing all the stupid shit that we did.
And there's someone else, so let's bring out that someone else.
A lot of the shit they edited out was great. I mean, there was a part where me and this audience member like ran at each other. He was calling me fag, and I was like, I'm gonna show you, fag. Come here, you know. And I knew the guy could beat me up, but I knew that they wouldn't let us fight. But I was like in the audience, like ready to fight. And then like one guy was asking about like, you know, what God would think of all this. And I was like, there's no God. And like the crowd just ate it up. You know, as soon as the show was over, they put us in a limo and sent us all to the airport together. The weird thing is though, like as far as promotion is, it was huge on a level that I never had experienced because again, pre-internet, the day after it aired, people were like on the street fucking chanting, Jerry, Jerry. And I'm like, dude, what, whoa. Like, and it happened a lot and it happened everywhere. And it happened at times, like at fucking Kmart, and it happened at like in Tijuana, it happened in Holland, it happened in Japan. It was like just the weirdest shit. And I didn't understand, for one, like I was on TV making out with a dude, and I would assume people would be pretty bummed on that, especially whatever year that was. And people were just psyched that it was like, you were on that show.
And like, there's always different ways of challenging patriarchy and all of the different isms that we live under. And I feel like JP has a way of doing it in a really subversive way where there's always a sort of hidden transcript and it's not so obvious all the time.
But I mean, over the years, I've embraced it. And it was absurd, you know, and so I think people just like ran with it and it became a thing for whatever reason that I still hear about every single day on tour by someone, you know.
Oh, that's cute.
My ring finger. I bet it's not that bad.
I don't think I, but it's just like a...
Yeah, do you have any team crumpets?
Justin?
Is it just here?
Yeah, it's just here. That's just from the splatter.
Your nails gnarly, dude.
Jesus. Your snare drum looks pretty fucking tough though, no?
See, it's just that flap.
Flaps are bad. So I started managing the Locust, and I saw them. I actually remember exactly when it was. I went to one of their shows in San Jose or something South Bay. I saw them loading out, and how long it took them to load out, and what they got paid at the end of the night. And I was like, this is not right.
It's not taking longer to set than they're gonna play.
Yeah, I know. It's gonna be awesome.
So if you want to talk while you're on tour, let me know. When we started to sort of explore what it would look like to, you know, work with another record company, have a little bit more resource in terms of production, you know, an advance to buy a van and things like that. That was, you know, I kind of helped facilitate that.
Well, let me backtrack a little bit because so all the Locust stuff up until that point was on GSL, and GSL was a lot like 31G at the time where we had no money. You know, our full-length album was recorded for like, I don't know, like $1,000 or something, you know, which is not much money. And we had like, you know, 5 days to record a record, and you know, we were cutting corners because the music was very dense, and we really wanted to work with someone that was like a producer that could actually help us, you know, not produce it musically, but produce it sonically, because a lot of that shit just turns into mush. So we really wanted to like find a label that would have a budget that we could really work with, work in a good studio and put out a great record.
As punk rock started coming up in New York and England, there was this one very bizarre group that I think that, you know, that I was really super into, and that's Devo. I secretly worship Devo. We weren't allowed to say that because in the LA hardcore scene, Devo was like, you know, they were new wave. You would pogo to Devo. You wouldn't, you know, it wasn't tough. I saw that in the Locust. I honestly thought that they were an embryonic Devo in the making.
Brett approaching us was this strange validation of everything we'd been doing up to that point. I have a lot of respect for Brett Gurewitz as a person, as a businessman.
We liked Brett a lot, and I liked a lot of the people that were associated with the label, but it had this stigma that was the antithesis of what we were about.
But Epitaph, especially at that time, was kind of known for being a pop punk label. It's like The Offspring and NoFX. I hated that shit.
We kept coming back to Brett with these other ideas, and what it came down to was like, we want to be on Anti.
Well, honestly, I wanted to sign him to Epitaph, but he was too cool to be on Epitaph. He wanted to be on Anti.
In the real world, I mean, Anti and Epitaph are the same label, but it's not called Epitaph. And Anti had Nick Cave and, you know, Tom Waits and all these awesome artists that we really did like, where we, you know, did not like Rancid. But for whatever reason, he ended up agreeing to it and we had the biggest budget for Plague Soundscapes that I think I've ever had in a band.
In a lot of ways, I sort of still feel like it's crazy that we ever landed there, that we never really fit in, but it was also sort of the most perfect place for us to land.
And it was great because we were really confident that we were going to be able to record the best thing we've ever done. And we were working with Alex Newport.
We could rely on his ear to just let us know, like, okay, we got what we needed.
We were so psyched, but as soon as that became public knowledge that we were doing this record on Anti, which was Epitaph, we got just the criticism poured in. Everyone was saying we sold out and we suck and we're gonna fucking sound like pop punk, and what do you want us to do? Go back to being on GSL and like just scrounging up money to put out a mediocre recorded record? When you have a $1,000 recording budget, you have X amount of hours and you're paying for just some guy to push record, mic it and then push record. But like with a producer in a studio with 2 weeks, you have the ability to do takes until you get it right. You have the ability to have someone actually like put time into making each sound be cohesive. Like make sure the hi-hat's there. Make sure the snare comes through when the blast beats are happening. Make sure certain synth frequencies aren't competing with the guitar and the bass. Make sure you sing properly.
We were really able to record it in a way that we hadn't before and hear it in a way that we hadn't before.
It was 100% analog, and so that it was like, I mean, we had changed after that record and embraced that concept of digital recording, but we were trying to be like these analog purists. So that's another thing too, is that shit costs a lot of money. Tape was expensive. 2-inch tape, was just, we went through a lot of it. We were able to do it until everybody did it perfect. I think it's a flawless record as far as our musicianship is concerned and the way it is recorded. I don't want to say it's like a perfect record in the sense of like music or art. It's just, I'm saying like technically it's a flawless record. That was the first time we were able to experience that. But the ironic thing is, as soon as Plague Soundscapes came out, the Dillinger Escape Plan did the record with Mike Patton, and then Converge did a record with Epitaph. And then Epitaph was like, all of our friends are over here now, and it's fine. Like, I really doubt that anyone criticized Converge for signing to Epitaph proper.
Well, I think, the records that they made when we were working, so like Plague Soundscapes, it's like, an amazing record. And working with them, like hearing them find that creativity was tremendous.
When Plague Soundscapes came out, it was like full on. I mean, at one point we did like a 4-month-long tour, and it just kind of kept going.
Seeing them play in London with the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and getting respect from their peers beyond sort of underground punk was also really wonderful.
I mean, we toured with Rock from the Crypt or Andrew WK or whatever, just whatever didn't seem right was like also a reason to do it.
Everything seemed the same, just like at a larger scale. I mean, maybe when we played like the bigger rooms, you wouldn't have like, people shitting in the mosh pit as much as you would at smaller things we've done, but...
Is that something that's happened?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell that story?
I just remember we were playing some show and someone shit in the pit, and then there was like some other guy riding a bicycle in the pit, and then there was like trash cans swirling around as well. And then someone fainted, so we had to stop the show to get that person out.
And there was more critical, recognition of their work, which I think was important to them and me. That their producers and the label, and people sort of recognizing that they were a unique and special band.
We were growing and still sort of dealing with a lot of like negativity from people. So that was when we started adding more, I guess, linear pieces and like having interludes and having these sort of landscapes of sound where it wasn't just so dense. I think musically we started evolving into something else. So the next record we did was Safety Second Body Last, which has these like very large chunks of material where there's space. We started focusing on things like just dynamic, and where before it was just dense and absurd all the way through. And so we started kind of like thinking about other ways to write music and thinking about other elements that we kind of skipped out on. A lot of it had to do with timing. So before we had recorded it, we had kind of linked up with Mike Patton and touring with Phantomos. Phantomos seemed a lot like what we were doing in The Locust. It has these like spacious movements that happen. From there, we just kept kind of evolving into figuring out ways to write other stuff that was still brutal and mid-tempo and kind of structurally written in a more mature way and not so like, let's throw out all these ideas and just be like, rah! It's kind of like, don't just regurgitate the same thing. Let's think it out. Let's have it be an evolution. I became friends with this music supervisor, and she licensed some music for a movie, and her really good friend is Asia Argento, and so she called me out of the blue and said, hey, Asia wants you to be in this film. She saw your Jerry Springer thing and thinks that you'd be a good fit. I mean, I didn't know what it was. I just said yeah to like a movie. Like it could be anything, like fuck, it could have been any kind of movie. And it exceeded my expectations.
My own fucking age? What the fuck? sorry.
I wanted to do more acting, but I don't really know how to act, and I don't really know how to get into a movie. And then I ran into these rad dudes from this band, The Manx, at a Headwind City show, and they do Uncle Grandpa, the cartoon, and they started Rick and Morty. You know, they're like, hey, you want to be an Uncle Grandpa? And I was like, yeah. And so then I was like a free sample snack elf.
Hello, friends! Welcome to Free Sample City! We're the Free Sample Elves. We make free samples all day long. Take a look! Free samples of veggie sausages, currently on sale. Be sure to sample our pineapple salsa with crispy dried kale. Vegan walnut cookie bites, freshly baked in our tree. Care for a sample? They're free, friggity free!
You know, and on Uncle Grandpa, like giving out like vegan snacks to the characters of the cartoon.
Y'all are some sick freaks.
It was awesome, you know, and I got paid really well, and it was easy.
Like I always say, don't be a piggy in Free Sample City.
It's like it just kind of fell into my lap, and I was able to do it, and I was open to do it, because maybe someone else would be like, I don't want to be in a cartoon, you know. I'm like, yeah, I'll be in a fucking cartoon. I mean, I'll be in a pancake commercial, you know, if you ask me to or whatever.
That'll teach you a lesson for taking advantage of us free sample elves. Don't you know, we already hate ourselves.
The time when I was doing The Locust and Some Girls, they were both full-time, but it wasn't like full-time in the sense that like when your album comes out, you have this insane tour cycle. I mean, even now, like none of the bands that I'm in go by those sort of industry standards where you put out a record and you're touring for 9 months, you know? It's sporadic and there's a lot of downtime to do other things. I just think I need to be busy regardless. You know, if I'm not writing a record or recording a record or on tour, I'll think about like something I should do with 31G, or I'll start writing a story. Hey, let's work on a video project, you know, or let's start a podcast or whatever, like something. Let's do something.
He is like a workaholic, but sometimes I wish I could just say like, just take a break, you know, you're stressing yourself out. I mean, I wouldn't want him to do anything else though, because I know that that's him.
After we finished our touring cycle for New Erections, we definitely took a break.
You know, I think at some point we just kind of had to step back from being an active band for close to 20 years.
In my mind, it felt like things were plateauing in a way, and it seemed like a break made a lot of sense. I mean, if for no other reason than to keep things from feeling stale.
I mean, I think everybody got busy with life, you know, and busy in different ways. And, you know, a lot of times I'll hear like, oh, you're doing all these things, why don't you do The Locust? And it's like, well, I'm not The Locust. I'm one of the 4 people, and it's not my decision. And if I was busy with The Locust, I probably wouldn't have done these other things, you know. So it's everybody has their own reasons, you know. And at some point we'll play again. There's just no pressure.
This last pass felt really good, vicious, fun. It just felt like it was renewed. The energy and excitement and the stamina to do it were renewed and back again.
You never know how long people like this will be around doing this for, so I think you should eat it up while you can.
I guess the ultimate goal of all of this shit is that like I want people to think, even if they're very critical or emotional or whatever it is, you know, like as long as they're there thinking something, then that's great. Because there's all these other platforms of art, music and television and film and whatever you want to pick that require no effort, and I think that that's boring.
I think the thing about him being an open book is very important. I think he's really misunderstood.
He's a diehard, man. That guy is just, he's the real deal.
One of the most tender people I've ever met.
You know, he was the best man at my wedding, and he scared the fuck out of all the little kids because of his mohawk that he had at the time.
I love him. You can put that in the documentary.
I was scooch over, we can get 2 shots.
What are you doing? Get back in the seat.
I'm getting over here by you.
Get in the seat.
You know, Marx once said that, you know, the tradition of all the dead generations weighs like a nightmare on the brain of the living.
He's got this whole pile of his past kind of pushing him into the future. And
when you're 12 years old and your father is murdered, like his was, growing up in an abusive family with an alcoholic father, and him getting abused and his dog getting abused, I think made him more resilient in a way, but it also taught him early on that the world is a fucked up place.
I never want to say like, oh, pity me or something, because I had a roof over my head and I was able to eat at least shitty TV dinners. But now, like, I think my mom is the coolest person. Sure, she has her flaws, but we all do, and she did her best, you know, and I think she did a pretty damn good job with what she was given, and she's rad. Or maybe this one might.
What, we're really gonna put these on?
Yeah, why not?
I like your furry one better.
Oh, here, put this one on.
No, I'm just teasing. How does
It's
this
okay.
go on?
You can wear the furry one.
It's fine.
Here, you gotta arrange it a little bit.
Shoot, it's not Halloween yet.
Sorry.
Got my hair caught in there.
Oh, shit.
Ah! Ew, this is so good.
You okay?
Yeah. All right. Whatever. All right.
Oh, Mom. All right.
Love you.
Love you too. Thanks.
Make things the best that you can with what you have. It's what we in Latinx communities call rascuache, to make do with what you have.
To be honest, this is what I think. I think Justin Pearson is an artist, and he can't fucking do anything else. I've even said to him, like, what would you do if you couldn't do this? What if you couldn't do the record label? What if you couldn't make records, go on tour, just even record music? And he'd just give me the blank stare and just go, I don't think about that stuff.
I've wanted to learn to play jazz music, but I think I need to get some sort of instruction with that. Every time I try and do it, it's like just brutal guy trying to play jazz music. It's just too rock and roll. Like I can't get it. So that's something I'd like to focus on. I think I like the Charles Mingus bass playing. I think like playing with a bassist like that would be really pretty rad. I think I'd like to do that for a little bit, and I'd probably get bored with it and want to get brutal again.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just something about playing like brutal music you can't get away from, you know.